Commander Thrak-Vol had seen a lot of stupid things in his 200 years of military service. He had watched Zephyrian cadets try to photosynthesize their way out of combat situations. He had observed mollusk warriors attempt to slime trail their way up vertical assault courses. Hell, he had even witnessed a crystalloid cadet trying to resonate his way through a stealth mission, which predictably alerted every enemy within a 3-kilometer radius. But this tiny, pink-skinned creature standing at attention in front of him. This was a new level of cosmic joke. "State your designation, recruit," Thrak-Vol growled, his scaled lips pulling back to reveal rows of serrated teeth that had intimidated 1,000 cadets before her. "Cadet Maya Torres, sir. Human, sir. Ready to serve the Galactic Alliance, sir." The little thing actually bounced on her toes when she spoke. Bounced. Like she was excited about potentially dying horribly in the next 72 hours. Thrak-Vol's yellow eyes narrowed as he studied her. Maya Torres stood barely 5 feet tall in her standard-issue combat boots. Her brown hair was pulled back in a regulation ponytail that somehow managed to look perky despite military precision. She had the kind of face that screamed harmless herbivore, big dark eyes, soft features, and a smile that suggested she had never encountered anything more dangerous than a particularly aggressive houseplant. "How precious," he muttered, making several notes on his datapad. Estimated survival time, 17 minutes. Cause of elimination, probably getting stepped on by accident. Around the training ground, other cadets were sizing up the competition. Cadet Blixer, an 8-foot-tall monument of living silicon and barely contained violence, cast a dismissive glance at the human. His crystalline form refracted the harsh Nexus Prime sunlight into rainbow patterns across the ground as he flexed his diamond-hard fists. Blixer had been the Academy's top performer for 3 consecutive cycles. He could punch through reinforced battle plating and had reflexes faster than most targeting computers. Next to him stood the human recruit, looking like someone's little sister who had wandered onto a battlefield by mistake. 10 credits says she doesn't make it past the first Predator encounter, whispered Cadet 6-star. A mantis-like insectoid whose previous species held the record for most embarrassingly quick elimination, a whopping 4 minutes and 37 seconds. "I'll take that action," clicked Cadet Mortek, his cybernetic implants whirring with amusement. "My money says she gets eliminated in the orientation phase. Probably trips over her own feet and breaks something important." Admiral Kestai floated above the assembly ground, her translucent, jellyfish-like form pulsing with bioluminescent patterns of mild interest. As a Medusoid, she had the advantage of seeing in multiple spectrums simultaneously, which made her excellent at spotting tactical weaknesses. Right now, she was struggling to spot anything resembling tactical capability in the human cadet. The annual Survival Gauntlet was Nexus Prime Military Academy's most prestigious and terrifying tradition. Every year, the top cadets from 47 different species were thrown into a holographic nightmare designed to push them beyond their biological and psychological limits. The scenarios were pulled from the most dangerous environments in known space: collapsing neutron star fragments, sentient virus swarms, predator planets, where the very ground tried to digest you. Only about 10% of cadets survived to graduation. The rest were eliminated through a combination of holographic death, nervous breakdowns, and the occasional genuine accident when someone's fight or flight response decided that flight meant run directly into the nearest wall at maximum velocity. "Listen up, meat." Thrak-Vol's voice boomed across the assembly ground, causing several smaller species to reflexively flatten themselves against the ground. In approximately 1 hour, you will enter the gauntlet. You will face enemies designed to exploit your species' specific weaknesses. You will confront scenarios that would make your worst nightmares wake up screaming. Most of you will fail spectacularly. And I will personally enjoy watching every second of your humiliation. Maya Torres raised her hand. Thrak-Vol stared at her. In 2 centuries of giving pre-gauntlet briefings, no cadet had ever raised their hand. They were usually too terrified, too focused, or too busy trying not to void their various biological waste disposal systems. "Yes, Cadet Torres? Is there a cafeteria in the simulation, sir? I skipped breakfast, and I'm getting kind of hungry." The silence that followed was so complete that Thrakvol could hear Admiral Kestai's float bladders contracting in what he recognized as suppressed laughter. Cadet Blixer made a sound like grinding quartz. Several other cadets actually face-palmed with whatever appendages they used for face-palming. "No, Cadet Torres," Thrakvol said slowly. "There is no cafeteria in the death simulation." "Oh." Maia looked genuinely disappointed. "Well, that's okay. I brought some energy bars." She patted a small pouch on her utility belt, apparently more concerned about snack management than the fact that she was about to enter a holographic meat grinder designed by sadistic military engineers. Thrakvol updated his prediction. Estimated survival time, 12 minutes. New cause of elimination, death by cosmic irony. As the cadets began their final equipment checks, the betting pools expanded rapidly. More tech started taking odds on whether the human would even make it to the starting line without injuring herself. Zixtar began a side bet on how many seconds she would spend screaming before elimination. But Admiral Kestai found herself studying the small human with growing curiosity. There was something about Maia Torres that didn't quite fit the profile of a typical prey species. The way she stood, the way her eyes tracked movement around the assembly ground, the casual confidence in her posture, it reminded Kestai of something she couldn't quite place. Something predatory. Final equipment inspection. Thrakvol barked. Standard combat gear, emergency medical kit, and whatever personal items you're foolish enough to think will help you survive. Maia Torres stepped forward with her kit. Standard plasma rifle check. Combat armor rated for Class 7 impacts check. Emergency medical supplies check. And Wend. Torres, what is that? Maia held up what appeared to be a small, flexible piece of fabric. "It's a hair tie, sir, in case my ponytail comes loose during combat." Thrakvol felt something die inside his soul. "Of course it is," he muttered. "Of course the human is worried about hair maintenance during mortal combat." As the cadets filed toward the gauntlet entrance, the betting reached fever pitch. The odds on Maia Torres surviving past the 10-minute mark had reached astronomical levels, mainly because several cadets were treating it as a charity donation to whoever was stupid enough to take the bet. None of them noticed the small, satisfied smile that crossed Maia's face as she checked her equipment one final time. None of them saw her fingers briefly trace the outline of something concealed in her boot. And none of them caught the way her eyes had catalogued every single weakness and blind spot of every cadet in the assembly ground. But Admiral Kestai did. And for the first time in decades, the ancient Medusoid felt a small chill run through her gelatinous form. The gauntlet materialized around the cadets like a fever dream designed by particularly vindictive botanists. Ancient trees stretched toward an alien sky, their bark pulsing with bioluminescent veins that cast everything in an eerie green glow. Thick vines dangled like nooses, and somewhere in the distance, something roared with the kind of sound that made evolution decide maybe staying in the ocean wasn't such a bad idea after all. "Welcome to the Nexus Jungle Protocol." Admiral Kestai's voice echoed through the holographic environment. "Survival time begins now." The cadets scattered like startled prey animals, which Thrakvol mused from his observation deck was exactly what most of them were. Blixor immediately began scaling the nearest tree with mechanical precision, his crystalline form refracting light in ways that would make him nearly invisible to most predators. Smart. Predictable, but smart. Yet Zixtar activated his natural camouflage and blended into the undergrowth. Also predictable. The insectoids always went for stealth first, violence second. And then there was Maia Torres. She stood in a small clearing, hands on her hips, looking around like a tourist who had gotten off at the wrong stop. "Oh, this is nice," she said to absolutely no one. "Reminds me of the rainforests back home, except less humid, and fewer things trying to poison me just by existing." Thrakvol leaned forward in his chair. "What is she doing?" "Being human, I suspect," Admiral Kestai replied, her bioluminescent patterns shifting to curious yellow. "Though I admit I'm not entirely sure what that entails." Maia had begun walking deeper into the jungle with the casual confidence of someone taking a nature stroll. She paused occasionally to examine interesting plants, completely oblivious to the fact that several of them were reaching toward her with clearly predatory intent. "Ooh, pretty flowers," she commented, stepping around a patch of carnivorous blooms that immediately snapped shut on empty air. "Good thing I'm not stupid enough to." The Nexus Prowler struck without warning. 8 feet of holographic death materialized from the shadows, its 6 legs propelling its tiger-like body toward Maia with enough force to punch through battle armor. Razor-sharp claws extended from paws the size of dinner plates. Its 3 eyes locked onto her with predatory hunger, and its mouth opened to reveal teeth that could shear through reinforced steel. Maia Torres looked up from the flower she'd been examining just as 2 tons of simulated apex predator launched itself at her face. "Oh, hello there," she said pleasantly. Then she dove sideways, grabbed a hanging vine, and swung herself up into the canopy with movements so fluid they looked choreographed. The Prowler crashed into the spot where she'd been standing, its claws gouging deep furrows in the holographic earth. It spun around, tracking her movement, muscles coiling for another leap. Maia, meanwhile, had wrapped her legs around a thick branch and was hanging upside down like some kind of demented fruit bat. "You know," she called down to the confused predator, "back home, we had these things called drop bears. Completely fake. But the tourists always believed the stories." She shifted her weight, and Thrak-Vol noticed something that made his scales stand on end. She wasn't just hanging from the branch. She was testing its flexibility, calculating angles, measuring distances. "The thing about drop bears," Maia continued conversationally, "is that they don't actually drop on you." She released her leg grip and fell, but not straight down. As she dropped, she grabbed another branch, used her momentum to swing around the tree trunk, picked up speed, grabbed a 3rd branch that bent under her weight like a catapult, and launched herself directly at the Prowler from behind. "You drop on them," she finished. The impact drove both Maia and the holographic predator into the base of a dead tree. The tree, already weakened by some kind of simulated blight, gave way with a tremendous crack. A 10-foot section of trunk, sharp as a spear where it had broken, fell like the hammer of an angry god. The Prowler looked up just in time to see several hundred pounds of pointed wood punch through its chest cavity. Maia rolled clear of the collapsing debris, hopped to her feet, and dusted off her uniform. "That was fun," she announced. "What's next?" The observation deck was dead silent. Thrak-Vol's data pad slipped from his nerveless claws and clattered to the floor. Did she just Cadet?" Tech's voice crackled through the communication system. "Did she just kill a Nexus Prowler with a tree?" "Beginner's luck." Lixor's voice was tight with forced dismissal. "No fluke. Complete accident." "Right," agreed Zixtar. "Humans are clumsy. Everyone knows that. She probably tripped and the tree fell on the Prowler by coincidence." Admiral Kestai said nothing, but her bioluminescent patterns had shifted to deep purple, the color of profound concern. Maia, oblivious to the existential crisis she was causing in the observation deck, had begun exploring deeper into the jungle. She was humming something under her breath. Something cheerful. The computer, Thrak-Vol croaked. "Replay that sequence. Slow motion." The holographic display obliged, showing Maia's improvised aerial assault frame by frame. The way she'd tested the branch strength. The calculated arc of her swing. The precise timing of her release. The way she'd positioned herself to use the falling tree as a weapon. That, Admiral Kestai said quietly, was not an accident. "No," Thrak-Vol agreed, his voice hollow with dawning realization. "No, it was not." Over the next 30 minutes, Maia Torres proceeded to systematically violate every principle of civilized combat that Thrak-Vol had spent 2 centuries teaching. She encountered a pack of razor moss, carnivorous plants that could strip flesh from bone in seconds. Instead of running or fighting, she found a dead log, set it rolling downhill, and used it to crush the entire colony while she sat safely in a tree, eating one of her energy bars. She stumbled across a shriek worm, a serpentine creature whose sonic attacks could liquefy internal organs. Maia calmly stuffed her ears with moss, walked up to the creature while it was shrieking itself hoarse, and dropped a large rock on its head. When a swarm of needle wasps surrounded her, instead of using her plasma rifle like any sensible cadet, She started a small fire with her emergency flare, waited for the smoke to disorient them, then used her combat knife to cut down a series of vines that tangled the entire swarm into an immobilized mass. 4 confirmed eliminations, Thrakvol reported in a voice that sounded like he was reading his own death sentence. 0 ammunition expended, 0 equipment damaged. How is this possible? Blixer's transmission was getting increasingly agitated. She's using rocks and sticks and gravity. Improvised tools. Maia's voice came through clearly as she examined her latest victim. My instructor back home always said, Maia, the best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't see coming. What kind of instructor teaches combat philosophy using rocks and sticks? 6 Tar demanded. My kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Patterson, Maia replied cheerfully. She ran a very competitive playground. Admiral Kestai's patterns shifted to bright orange, the color of imminent danger. Commander Thrakvol, she said quietly, I believe we may have made a significant error in our threat assessment. Thrakvol watched as Maia Torres actually skipped, deeper into the holographic jungle, leaving a trail of creatively destroyed predators behind her. You think? He muttered. By the 1-hour mark, Maia Torres had achieved something that should have been mathematically impossible. She had eliminated 12 separate threats, which was more than most cadets managed during their entire academy career. What made it worse from the perspective of everyone watching was that she seemed to be getting more creative with each kill. Status report, Admiral Kestai requested, though her tone suggested she wasn't sure she wanted to hear the answer. Cadet Torres has now successfully eliminated 2 Nexus Prowlers, 1 Shriek Worm, a colony of Razor Moss, 3 separate Needle Wasp swarms, a pack of Bone Crushers, 2 Shadow Stalkers, and... Thrakvol consulted his increasingly horrified notes, a Titanium-class battle droid that was supposed to be indestructible. How did she destroy a battle droid? She convinced it to chase her across a rope bridge, then cut the ropes when it was halfway across. The droid fell into a ravine and was destroyed by its own impact protocols. She used psychology on a machine? Apparently, sir. The droid's final transmission was error. Human behavior does not compute. What Thrakvol didn't mention, because he was still trying to process it himself, was that Maia's tactics had evolved beyond simple environmental exploitation. She had moved into what could only be described as psychological warfare. 20 minutes earlier, she had encountered a territory dispute between 2 different predator species, a pack of saber hounds and a family of crushing mantis. Instead of avoiding the conflict like any sane being, Maia had climbed a tree and started throwing rocks, not at the creatures, but near them. Strategic rock placement that made each group think the other was advancing into their territory. The resulting battle had eliminated both species while Maia sat safely overhead, methodically working her way through her emergency rations. Ooh, beef jerky, she had commented while the carnage raged below. Haven't had this flavor in ages. But it was the spider trap incident that had really pushed things into nightmare territory. Cadet 6 Tar had been tracking what he thought was wounded prey through a section of dense undergrowth when he stumbled into a clearing dominated by an enormous web. Not unusual, the Nexus jungle was full of giant predatory spiders. What was unusual was the fact that Maia Torres was sitting cross-legged in the center of the web, apparently having a conversation with a web weaver the size of a small shuttle. I know, right? Maia was saying to the massive arachnid. Back home, we had these huntsman spiders that would get into the house, and everyone would freak out. But they were actually really helpful because they ate all the cockroaches. The web weaver was making confused, chittering sounds. Oh, you don't have cockroaches here? Lucky you. Trust me, you don't want to know. 6 Tar, being an insectoid himself, found the entire conversation deeply disturbing. He was about to retreat when Maia noticed him. Oh, hey there, she called cheerfully. Come on over. Webby here was just telling me about the local ecosystem. That's a web weaver, Zixtar managed. They're apex predators. They dissolve their prey with acid. Yeah, Webby mentioned that. But she's not hungry right now, and I helped her redecorate her web. See how much more structurally sound it is now. Zixtar looked around the clearing and realized with growing horror that Maia had modified the web. What had once been a simple radial pattern was now a complex maze of interconnected strands that formed what could only be described as a death trap with multiple escape routes. And from Maya, "How are you not dead?" Zixtar whispered. "Oh, that's easy. I brought snacks." Maya held up what appeared to be a ration pack. "Turns out web weavers love synthetic protein bars." Who knew? That was when 3 shadow stalkers materialized from the undergrowth, drawn by the sound of conversation. Invisible predators that could phase through solid matter and had reflexes faster than plasma bolts. Maya didn't even stand up. "Webby," she said conversationally, "I think we have uninvited guests." The web weaver's response was immediate and devastating. The modified web suddenly contracted like a closing fist, trapping all 3 shadow stalkers in a tangle of reinforced silk. The struggling predators became more entangled with each movement, and Maya's structural improvements meant the web held against forces that should have shredded it. "Thanks, girl," Maya said, patting one of the web weaver's legs like it was a friendly dog. "I'll leave the rest of my protein bars in the hollow tree over there. Trade agreement, right?" The web weaver chittered what sounded like agreement. Zixtar had fled, but not before transmitting what he'd witnessed to the other cadets. His final message was a single, horrified whisper. "She's not hunting them. She's recruiting them. The human is building an army." From that moment on, Maya Torres had a new designation among the surviving cadets, Death Maiden. "This is impossible." Blixer's transmission crackled with static and barely suppressed panic. "Humans are supposed to be weak. They're supposed to be prey species. They don't have natural armor, or venom, or enhanced reflexes, or—" "Cadet Blixer," Maya's voice interrupted cheerfully, "you sound stressed. Are you okay? Where are you?" Blixer roared. "Oh, I'm right behind you." The sound that followed was unlike anything in Thrak-Vol's experience. It was the noise a 8-foot-tall crystal warrior makes when he discovers a 5-foot-tall human has been silently following him for the past 10 minutes without him noticing. "How long have you been there?" Blixer demanded. "Since you started talking to Zixtar about forming an alliance against me," Maya replied. "Which, by the way, is totally fair. I mean, if I were you guys, I'd probably team up against me too. I've gotten pretty good at this. You've been listening to our tactical communications? Well, yeah, you're not exactly using encrypted channels. Plus, you're all talking really loudly. Mrs. Patterson always said that if you're going to whisper secrets, you should actually whisper." Admiral Kestai's bioluminescent patterns had shifted to deep red, the color reserved for existential threats to galactic security. "Commander Thrak-Vol," she said quietly, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly." "Yes, sir?" "In your professional opinion, how many of our cadets could Maya Torres eliminate if she were actually trying to kill them?" Thrak-Vol studied his tactical displays. Maya Torres was currently covered in holographic gore from at least 6 different creature types, had somehow acquired a collection of improvised weapons, and was cheerfully asking Blixer if he knew any good camping songs while stalking him through dense jungle. "All of them," he said finally. "Sir, I believe she could eliminate all of them." "I was afraid you'd say that." Maya's voice came through the communication system again, bright and conversational despite the fact that she appeared to be dangling upside down from a tree branch. "By the way," she said, "is anyone else finding this really relaxing? It reminds me of home." "Relaxing?" Mortek's voice was strained. "You call this death trap relaxing?" "Oh, totally. Back home in New Tasmania, we had drop bears, funnel web spiders, box jellyfish, blue ringed octopi, cassowaries, taipan snakes, and that's just the stuff that lived in our backyard. This is like a nature preserve by comparison. Very peaceful. Nobody's tried to poison me even once." The communication channel fell silent. "New Tasmania?" Admiral Kestai asked faintly. "Yeah, it's one of Earth's more energetic colonies. My dad always said it was the perfect place to raise kids because if you could survive childhood there, you could survive anywhere." Thrak-Vol felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Cadet Torres," he said slowly, "what exactly did your childhood involve?" "Oh, you know, the usual stuff. School, homework, trying not to get eaten by the local wildlife, learning to make improvised weapons from household objects, basic survival training, advanced camouflage techniques. Maia paused thoughtfully. Wait, do other species not teach their children how to set traps and build shelters? How do you prepare them for adulthood? We don't usually assume our children will be fighting for their lives on a daily basis, Blixer said weakly. That explains a lot about why you guys seem so unprepared for this exercise. Admiral Kestai's patterns had shifted to bright white, in the color of surrender. Commander Thrakvol, she said quietly, I think we need to reconsider our entire understanding of human physiology. Why? Thrakvol asked, though he suspected he already knew. Because I don't think Maia Torres is an exceptional human. I think she's a typical human. And if that's true, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Somewhere in the jungle, Maia Torres was humming a cheerful tune while casually dismantling 200 years of established military doctrine. The shift happened at the 90-minute mark, and Thrakvol watched it unfold with the kind of horrified fascination usually reserved for watching star systems collapse. All remaining cadets formed tactical alliance. Blixor's transmission cut through the communication channels with military precision. Target designation Maia Torres. She has become the primary threat to mission completion. Finally, Admiral Kestai murmured. Some logical thinking. 8 elite cadets from 7 different species converged on Maia's last known position with the coordinated efficiency that made them the Academy's top performers. Blixer took point with his diamond-hard exoskeleton and devastating physical capabilities. Zixtar provided reconnaissance with his natural camouflage and compound eyes. Mortek brought his cybernetic enhancements and tactical analysis systems. 5 others formed a support perimeter with enough combined firepower to level a small building. It should have been overkill. 8 against 1. A professional military training against a kindergarten graduate from a death world. Contact established. Mortek reported. Target located in Sector 7. She's sitting by a stream, eating lunch. Eating lunch? Blixor's voice cracked with disbelief. Affirmative. She appears to be having some kind of picnic. Wait, she's waving at us. Through the tactical display, Thrakvol could see Maia Torres sitting cross-legged beside a holographic stream, methodically working her way through what appeared to be a sandwich. When she noticed the approaching cadets, she smiled brightly and gave them a friendly wave. Hi guys. Her voice carried clearly across the water. I was wondering when you'd all team up. Want to share my lunch? I packed extra. She packed extra, Zixtar whispered. She knew we'd find her, and she packed extra food. Trap, Blixer decided. Obviously a trap. Maintain formation. Advance with caution. It's not a trap, Maia called out. I just believe in being prepared. My mom always said, Maia, if you're going to have an adventure, bring snacks for everyone. The 8 cadets advanced in textbook formation, weapons ready, covering all possible escape routes. Every principle of small unit tactics said they had her cornered. That was when Maia Torres stood up, dusted the crumbs off her uniform, and did something that made Thrakvol question everything he thought he knew about combat. She ran away. She not tactically withdrew, not executed a fighting retreat. She just turned around and ran like a frightened prey animal, crashing through the underbrush with all the stealth of a panicked herbivore. She's fleeing, Mortek announced. Pursuit course laid in, and like the apex predators they were, all 8 cadets gave chase. Which was exactly what Maia Torres wanted them to do. Oh no, Thrakvol breathed, watching the tactical display with dawning horror. She's not running away, she's leading them. The chase lasted exactly 17 minutes and covered nearly 2 kilometers of dense jungle terrain. Maia stayed just far enough ahead to keep them motivated, close enough that they believed they could catch her. She stumbled occasionally, apparently from exhaustion. She cried out in apparent fear when branches caught her uniform. She was giving the performance of her life as a helpless prey animal, right up until she led them into the clearing she'd spent the last hour preparing. Welcome to my parlor, Maia announced, spinning around to face her pursuers with a grin that would have made a saber hound nervous. The clearing was approximately 50 meters across, ringed by trees, with a single narrow entrance and no visible exits. perfect for trapping prey. Perfect for ensuring 8 elite cadets had nowhere to run when they realized what was about to happen to them. Maya Torres had turned the entire jungle into a weapon. Tactical assessment. Blixer barked to his team. "What are we looking at?" "Standard engagement zone," more tech reported. "Open terrain, minimal cover, single choke point. We have her trapped." "No," Maya said pleasantly. "You have yourselves trapped. I just borrowed your tactics." That was when the trees started falling. Not all at once, not randomly, in a carefully orchestrated sequence that Maya had spent an hour arranging. Strategic cuts in key support branches, precisely calculated leverage points. A domino effect of falling timber that turned the clearing into a maze of obstacles, separated the cadets from each other, and left Maya standing in the only safe zone in the entire area. How? Zixtar's voice was barely a whisper. "How did you prepare all this?" "Time management," Maya replied, pulling her combat knife from her boot. "While you guys were forming alliances and making tactical plans, I was doing arts and crafts." What followed was not a battle in any conventional sense. It was a masterclass in how human ingenuity could triumph over superior firepower when applied with sufficient creativity and complete disregard for logical tactical doctrine. Maya didn't fight them as a group. She divided them, isolated them, turned their coordination against them by forcing them to move through terrain that broke up their formations and neutralized their numerical advantage. When Blixer tried to use his strength to smash through a fallen tree, Maya used his momentum against him, causing him to crash into a carefully positioned trap that left him temporarily stunned and separated from his team. When Zixtar attempted to use his camouflage for ambush tactics, Maya employed what she cheerfully called aggressive landscaping, systematically disturbing every piece of cover in a 20-meter radius until the poor insectoid had nowhere to hide. "This is impossible," Mortec transmitted desperately. "She's violating every principle of combat theory." "That's the point," Admiral Kestai said quietly to Thrakvol. "She's not following our combat theory. She's following hers." And Maya's combat theory, Thrakvol was beginning to realize, was based on a fundamentally different understanding of warfare, where military doctrine emphasized overwhelming force, superior technology, and tactical superiority. Maya treated combat like a puzzle to be solved using whatever tools were available. She didn't need to be stronger than her opponents. She just needed to be more creative. She didn't need better weapons. She just needed to use the environment more effectively. She didn't need tactical superiority. She just needed to be more unpredictable than they could adapt to. Biological advantage, Admiral Kestai observed, watching Maya effortlessly transition from sprinting to climbing to combat to sprinting again without apparent fatigue. Look at her endurance levels, her adaptability, her pain tolerance. Maya had taken several hits that should have slowed her down. A glancing plasma bolt that scorched her shoulder. A fall that should have sprained something important. A collision with Blixer that should have broken at least 3 bones. She kept fighting like nothing had happened. "Human physiology," Thrakvol murmured. "They're persistence hunters. They don't have to be faster than their prey. They just have to outlast them." One by one, the elite cadets began to falter. Not from injury, Maya was being surprisingly careful not to cause permanent damage, but from exhaustion, frustration, and the growing realization that they were fighting something that operated by completely different rules than anything they'd been trained to handle. "She's not trying to defeat us," Blixer panted into his communicator. "She's trying to wear us down." No, Maya's voice was still cheerful, still conversational, despite the fact that she'd been fighting 8 opponents for the better part of an hour. "I'm trying to teach you something." "What?" Zixtar demanded. "That sometimes the best way to win a fight is to make sure it's not the fight your enemy was expecting." When the dust settled, Maya Torres stood alone in the center of the clearing, surrounded by 8 exhausted, defeated, and thoroughly confused alien cadets. She was still humming. "Exercise complete?" Admiral Kestai announced, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had just witnessed the fundamental laws of the universe rearrange themselves. Cadet Maya Torres, sole survivor. The holographic jungle dissolved around them, leaving Maya standing in the center of a standard training room. She looked around with mild disappointment, as if she'd been enjoying the scenery. "Oh, is it over already?" she asked, checking a small device on her wrist. "Wow, 3 hours and 47 minutes. That was fun. Is there actually a cafeteria now? Because I'm getting really hungry, and I used up all my snacks during the team building exercise." Team building exercise. Thrakvol felt something break inside his military soul. She was calling the systematic defeat of 8 elite cadets a team building exercise. Around the training room, medics were checking on the eliminated cadets. Blixer sat slumped against a wall, staring at nothing with the expression of someone questioning his entire existence. Zixtar was making soft chittering sounds that might have been crying. Mortek's cybernetic implants were running diagnostic cycles, apparently trying to determine if they had malfunctioned. Cadet Torres, Admiral Kestai, descended to Maya's eye level, her bioluminescent pattern cycling through colors that had no names because they represented emotions that shouldn't exist. "I need to ask you something very important." "Sure thing. Fire away." "Among human military recruits, where would you rank yourself in terms of capability?" Maya tilted her head thoughtfully. "Oh, that's easy. I'm pretty average. Maybe slightly below average, actually. I mean, I only got into the academy because they needed to fill their diversity quota, and my test scores were just barely acceptable." She paused, looking slightly embarrassed. "To be honest, I was kind of worried I'd embarrass Earth by washing out on the first day." The silence that followed was so complete that Thrakvol could hear his own heart's beating. "Average," Admiral Kestai repeated faintly. "Well, maybe a little below average. My brothers are way better at this stuff than I am. Jake's with the Colonial Marines. And he could probably have finished this exercise in under 2 hours. And don't even get me started on my sister Emma. She's Special Forces. She once took out an entire pirate fleet using nothing but a cargo hauler and some creative engineering." Thrakvol's data pad clattered to the floor for the second time that day. "Your family?" he croaked. "Are they all military?" "Oh no, just the kids. Mom's a xenobiologist and Dad's a terraforming engineer. Pretty normal family, really. We just grew up in an environment where you had to be resourceful to survive." Maya brightened. "Actually, you guys would probably love my hometown. It's got all sorts of interesting challenges. Like last month, we had a volcanic eruption, a meteor shower, and a plague of carnivorous butterflies all in the same week." "Carnivorous butterflies," Blixer whispered. "Yeah, they were beautiful. Terrible for the livestock, though." Admiral Kestai's patterns had shifted to deep black. The color reserved for existential threats that required immediate galactic intervention. "Commander Thrakvol," she said quietly, "priority transmission to High Command. Immediate reclassification of human threat assessment required." "What classification should I assign?" Thrakvol asked, though he suspected he already knew. "Maximum. Code Omega. Potential galaxy-ending species." Maya, who had been examining the training room with interest, looked up with concern. "Did I do something wrong? I tried really hard not to actually hurt anyone." Mrs. Patterson always said violence should be a last resort, and even then you should be polite about it. "No, Cadet Torres," Admiral Kestai said with the tone of someone delivering a death sentence. "You did everything perfectly. That's the problem." "Oh, good. So when do we eat? All that running around really worked up an appetite. And tomorrow, do we get to do team exercises? Because I have some great ideas for group activities." Thrakvol looked at Maya Torres, 5 feet of cheerful destruction disguised as a friendly young woman who was worried about missing lunch, and felt the weight of 2 centuries of military experience crumble into dust. "Sir," he said to Admiral Kestai, "I believe we're going to need a bigger academy." "No, Commander," the Admiral replied, watching Maya skip toward what she hoped was the cafeteria. "I believe we're going to need a completely different understanding of what it means to be human." In the distance, Maya's voice echoed through the corridors. "I wonder if they have pizza. Oh, I hope they have pizza." And somewhere in the depths of space, the Galactic High Command received a priority transmission that would forever change how the universe viewed the small, pink creatures from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. The message was simple: humans are not pets. Humans are not allies. Humans are apex predators who have learned to smile. The galaxy would never be the same.